Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the RChain Community Debrief. Steve Ross Talbot and I are in Paris with Raphael and the DAPI team. We attended our first day of the Paris Blockchain Week Summit. Yesterday, we had a good talk at the Ecole 42 school. But we'll get more details about that after the tech update. Rao, are you ready to give the tech update?
Yes, I am. I'm pasting the link here in the chat for the tech update. I'm going to share my screen. So basically, the team is moving along with making the changes necessary for finalization using the simple protocol. What we mean by the simple protocol is that this is the one that does not take into consideration any potential network partition. That is something that we'll work on later. But as part of this main thing to get the finalization code implemented, there are some refactorings that the team is going through also, and that should help simplify the overall implementation, understandability of the code, and maintainability of the code, as well as hopefully make it more performant. So that's all happening in parallel. And all the code changes are being tested against the simulator. So that's how they're working. And we hope that in about 2 weeks, we'll be able to demonstrate how the finalization process works and how it addresses the different conditions that it needs to account for. So that's the main progress in terms of the code base. And once this simple protocol implementation is completed for finalization, next step, the team is going to look into making sure that the finalization works properly at the time of epoch change, and the design for that and the considerations there are already discussed. But there is probably more discussion and then writing up the design, which we will do afterwards, after the current implementation is done. So that's step 2, if you would, of the finalization implementation. And then the step 3 would be taking into consideration the potential for network partition, where if some nodes are slow to respond, and if enough nodes say, okay, we have enough data to move forward with finalization, the second set of nodes, the slow set of nodes, may fall behind, and addressing how to bring them back when they are responsive and how to combine that back into finalization. That's going to be the next, if you would, step 3 of the finalization piece. So that's where we are. And in terms of the networks, the 013.0 alpha is what was running on, is running probably right now as we speak on the testnet. But Gurinder is testing alpha 2, 013.0 alpha 2, which fixes some of the performance or memory issues rather that were reported on the 013.0 alpha. So that should be up on the testnet relatively soon. In addition, Gurinder has been spending a fair amount of time bringing up the RPC mainnet. And last I heard, more than a half hour ago or so, I think the RPC mainnet should be up and running. So that's where we are with the networks. There has not been any change to the mainnet in the last few weeks. Will has completed the work on the multisig vault, as I reported last time. He's documenting how to use the multisig, and I'll probably be assisting him on that. In addition, Will has been looking into how to do soft updating of the registry, and by reference or by implication, the POS contract, basically. So Will has studied the code and identified the areas that need to be addressed for correct update of the registry. And Thomas Lau and will be doing the necessary design work to move forward with that. So that's where we are with that. And Stas has implemented the block store as key value typed store. So like I said there is quite a few refactorings that the team is doing, eliminating whatever is not necessary or whatever is complicating the logic and the flow of the code. So this is one of the things, one of the improvements and refactorings necessary for finalization. So Stas has his PR out there that's being reviewed right now. Nadzipra and Stas will be working with more changes to enable finalization code. So that's what they're doing. And Dennis is continuing to measure and understand the performance data. He's gotten to a lot more detail this last week to understand the contributors to exponential delay and what the potential remedies are. So he was kind of basically looking at a lot of the Java Java memory management, how that works, and how to improve things. So that's what he's been working on. Max has implemented alternative serialization for Radix history. That PR is listed here, and it's currently being reviewed. And he also made preliminary performance measurements for comparison with the previous versions, and I think that's also reported in that PR. So the other stuff, we're working with potential external validators to get them familiar with running nodes on the testnet. And then there is continued engagement with the market to bring on projects to be deployed onto the chain. So these two things, external validators and the customer engagement, is basically ongoing. So I'll probably refer to it only once in a while, but you should rest assured that we're kind of working on both of those things also at the same time. So those are the main highlights from a tech update standpoint. Are there any questions, comments?
Just one clarification, Rao. The RPC mainnet is, the hardware and is up and everything. We're doing some testing on it. We're doing some soak testing. The RPC mainnet with the wallet file is not up yet. That's okay. In the process. Just clarifying that.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for the clarification. I wasn't sure from you. I guess I misinterpreted what you typed. Good. I'm glad you gave the clarification. All right. Anything else?
I'm a little curious about the work that Will is doing. If you could scroll up a little bit, please.
Yeah, this part here, multi-sig vault.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, I don't know if Will is on the call here, but
I don't think he is. It's too late for him.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably asleep right now. And I'm just curious about the soft update of the multi-sig. And
no, just clarify.
It's not
It's two different things. Multi-sig is one task, and maybe I should break this down into separate sentence. A soft update is of the registry and the POS contract, not multi-sig.
Okay. All right. Well, then that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
I've got a question. Hopefully you can hear me. My Zoom just crashed. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Will the simple algorithm be version 0.13.1 and the with partitions 13.2, or how will provisioning or the versioning work with releases?
Yeah, we haven't necessarily finalized that, but anytime we have any substantial code that's ready to be either tested or moved forward, we will be giving it a new release. So I think it's fair to assume at this time that it will be 0.13.1 when we have the finalization done, because that then gives us a base upon which to build by doing the release. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments before I move it over or pass it back on to Greg?
Hey, Rao. Steve here.
Hey, Steve.
I've got a question. I've always wondered, but I've never asked. When do we have version 1 point something?
Yeah, we talked about that. But so basically, the thinking is that when we have external validators and we have a decentralized network, that will be version 1.0 is the thought process. So until then,
Right.
there was conversation before about, hey, like once we're done with 13, that should be named as 1.0. But in my mind, it's both completing finalization as well as getting external validators would then qualify as a full decentralized blockchain with all the Mercury features all completed. So that's the definition of 1.0 is how we're thinking about that at this point.
Very helpful.
I remember the last time that this topic came up that we discussed whether or not inter-shard communication would be included in 1.0. And so I'm curious about that.
The inter-shard communication, I don't recall if that was a Mercury commitment. I don't believe it was, but I have not really looked at 3 years old or 5 years old Mercury documentation recently. So don't hold me to that. But we will go to 1.0 probably at external validators when we have that feature included.
Okay. All right. I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, if you recall, basically sharding and rolling 1.1 optimization, those are all second half commitments later part of this year. So it's just that we have brought forward some of the sharding features to enable RPC mainnet to be launched, but there's quite a bit more work that needs to be done in sharding. And so we're not going to necessarily put all of that in front of other things at this point in time.
Okay, so you didn't say this explicitly, but what I hear you saying is that the second half of the year is all those other things, and that the first half of the year is 1.0.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Over to you, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you. Kudos to the dev team for the hard work. Thanks, Ralph, for an excellent summary. I will begin with the discussion of the Ecole 42 talk that went incredibly well. I think largely the magic was just because we were surrounded by a group of very smart, very focused, and engaged people, and they asked a lot of good questions, and we had satisfying answers, and so that was very good for them. But also our motivation, like why we were doing what we were doing, was at least as engaging for them. So they very much liked the green focus. They very much liked the fact that we were not holding any punches with respect to what's happening with respect to climate change, and they very much liked the fact that we were trying to build tools so that they could begin to manage their lives in a very uncertain future, and they wanted to know how they could get involved. And Nora, you're exactly right. People like truth. So in that sense, Paris is spectacular. The air is terrible. I can't stand coming to Paris. I can't breathe here. But apart from that, it's great culturally, and it's a very good time to be here for blockchain. Paris seems to be another hub for blockchain. The Paris Blockchain Week 10-minute talk didn't go quite as well for two reasons. One was they didn't use the right versions of the slides, so Raphael was very clear and sent them the correct versions of the slides, but they took the initial draft that we sent to them instead. And I think just because I was jet lagged, I just lost track of the time. Normally I have a very good metronome, which we showed in the RChain ecosystem meeting. But the talk expanded out to 10 minutes instead of 7. And so Steve only had a few seconds to kind of relay his piece of it, which was a bit frustrating, I think, for both of us. I felt chagrined that I had lost track of time. But
hey, we still nailed it.
Yeah, I think that's true. The message is landing. People are starting to get what we're saying. Because we can relate it to their daily experiences on the one hand, and because there's a wider vision on the other. So in that regard, I feel good about the overall communication. And I think the will have even more impact. The Ecole 42 talk was recorded, and we'll be getting a link shortly. The London visit to our partners there was excellent. I have very good news to share. I will share that in the closed door session. But incredibly good news, and even more good news following on that. So if you are interested, the one thing is that I think I will be in the air on Friday. So we will have to have maybe a special closed door session. And I think that's going to be true both for the, yes, I think that we will have to move both the regular closed door session and the special Chinese community closed door session. Both of those will have to be moved. Which is just as good because it's Easter weekend, and I know that Adikby is going to be taking some holiday time with his family. So just mark your calendars that I'll be in the air, and so we'll have to move the closed door sessions to the Monday, I think, because it's worth talking about soon, so we can get community input. But it's quite good news. Let's see, what else have we got? We moved the special board meeting to tomorrow, so we will. I have no news to report on the board. Daryl, are you ready to give the week in review?
Sure. So yeah, yesterday I watched the presentation you did, the Ecole 42 presentation with Steve Henley. We were both on a Zoom call, so we kind of watched it together. And it was so good. It was so fantastic. It was super inspiring. And I think you nailed it. And you're getting better at explaining the kind of grand vision that, only you can have contains in your brain. And you're getting really good at kind of explaining it to a layperson audience. And the engagement with the kids there was just super inspiring. Yeah, so it was fantastic. So I think the video of it is going to be available real soon, hopefully later today, if not tomorrow. So make sure we'll post it everywhere. Okay, so here's the week in review for last Thursday, April 17th to today, April 13th. On Friday in the Climate Coordination RCast, we discussed the new IPCC report and the UN advocating for the world to reach peak emissions by 2025 in 3 years to avoid mass catastrophe. We also discussed giant orchids and escaped flamingo and a charity effort by Pink Floyd. And I gave an autobiographical account of people who have inspired me in my life in regards to the process of actualizing dreams. Let's see, on yesterday in the communications working group, it was largely a marketing focused call. We did some live work on the press release document and discussed getting a content calendar together. And this morning in the active member hangout, Jim had to leave early due to some traveling, and we started watching a demo that Theo has been working on. And we might show it in this debrief. And that brings us to now.
Thank you, Daryl. Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a shorty today.
Yeah, understood.
Tell everyone that there's been almost 1,000 hits on LinkedIn from that Ecole 42 since I put it up there.
That's awesome.
It's not.
Theo, are you planning on giving a demo? That was interesting.
Theo, do we
Recorded, so it's
do we
matter of
have the
playing it back.
Uh, okay. Okay, so we have a video. Steve, Ross Talbot, do you want to play it?
I can play it.
Daryl can
just,
play it back if it has better connection. Or
Yeah, we
Okay.
just kind of tested this in the members hangout. I could
Oh, okay, well-
I could show Theo.
Yeah, if you've got it ready.
Okay,
then
great. Go
Go
for
ahead.
it. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see here. I'll just share my screen.
Just don't do what I do, Daryl, which is forget to share sound, but I'm sure you won't.
Okay, hopefully I won't forget. Let's see if this works here.
Hello, and welcome to the demo of RDrive. Today we're going to be uploading, minting, selling, and purchasing NFTs using a file manager. That's right, you heard correctly. We're going to be uploading, minting, selling, and buying NFTs using nothing other than a file manager. So let's get started. We have two users, publisher and buyer, and each of those users have a mounted RDrive folder. Let's begin with the publisher. Publisher also has a smart folder associated with the name, and that folder is driven by a smart contract. This folder is currently empty, so let's change that by uploading a few photographs. But before I do that, I'm gonna change this config file and set the price from 0 to 5 ref. What this does is essentially sets the price for each file being uploaded, essentially turning them into NFTs. Now that I drag and drop all of the files, it begins the uploading process. As you can see in the background, it has created a bunch of deploys with a bunch of data. And that data is currently being stored on the blockchain. And for the record, the data I'm referring to is actual image data, and not just a multi-hash string. Now, while data is still being uploaded, we can go back and see what buyer has in their RDrive. They also have a smart folder called buyer that they only have full control over, and it's currently empty, but that's where all of our purchased NFTs are going to reside. Now, before we can proceed with the purchase, we have to fund our wallet with some broad ref. In order to do that, we have to create a special file that contains the exact amount we want our balance to be. In the background, we see it has created a credit operation and funded a wallet with 5 ref. Essentially what it does is creating a purse with a raw ref and putting the real ref in an escrow. Now we just need to wait for the block to be created and finalized before we can proceed with the purchase. Now that the credit operation has been successful, we can proceed with the purchase. You might be wondering, how does one purchase an NFT using a file manager? It's very simple. First, we browse what publisher has in store. Then we pick and choose what we want to purchase. for example, image of the soul. And we simply drag and drop it into our folder and into our possession. As you can see in the background, it has created a swap operation, essentially swapping ref, RDrive for this NFT. Now we just wait for the block to be finalized, and we have our owl in our possession. We have successfully purchased an NFT with a simple drag and drop. Now let's see if the publisher still has this NFT. As we can see, the NFT is now gone and no longer exists in the publisher folder. Instead, we see there is a rev_balance.rev file that we saw earlier. And this file contains the exact amount the NFT was sold for. Now the publisher can easily withdraw this RDrive for the real rev. All they have to do is simply change this file and write 0 to it. And this concludes our demo.
Brilliant. That is awesome.
It is, isn't it?
So
Very nice.
But one of the things that everyone needs to recognize about that demo that we just saw is that every data, every datum was on chain. You know, we're dragging and dropping from a file manager, and we're dragging and dropping rev, and we're editing files. This is all on chain. So it's secure. And that is an important understanding of what RDrive is about. The purchase of an NFT by simple drag and drop, that's the future.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is token transfer and exchange mapped to operations that anyone can perform, basically, because everyone does file transfers and new folders, etc. Those are very simple operations.
Everyone in the world knows how to use an application to edit a file.
Well, we need to be a little bit careful about that. Yeah. I mean, the Yanomamo don't do that, but your point.
Every rich white person in the world knows how to.
I think the important thing here with the files, it goes back to the basis of Unix, right? The basis of Unix as an operating system, and why it has been so successful was the simplicity and the understanding it had about what you can do with files, and that included pipes and redirection, right? It's a very simple concept in Unix, and it's why it's still so powerful today. What we're doing is applying that to a blockchain. And then from there, without Unix, it's entirely possible that much of the simplicity that we see today in how people use graphical user interfaces, that was based upon that concept of files ultimately. And what that demo shows is that same ethos of design, about that simplicity of concept, that it's easy for people to kind of understand. That gives rise to a whole genre of new applications that people can now imagine on a blockchain that they couldn't before.
Agreed.
That, I think, is where the power is. And that's why when I first saw the demo, some time ago, and when I talked with the RPC dev team about could we do this, I mean, I never imagined in my wildest dreams that we would have something quite this good. I thought we'd have something that was a browser that was in a web browser, like a Google Drive. But what we've got is something more like a Dropbox, which is much more powerful.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
so I'm going to take it down to perhaps a more technical level, okay? And I'm going to say, take a Rolang contract, a smart Rolang contract, make it a file, and then pipe data into it and get data out. And that is the essential Unix pipe concept. Now, I realize this may be more technical than many people understand, but imagine if you could pipe data into Rolang and get out the result. And what could you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of workflow and processing and process automation that can be done using these metaphors. Yeah.
Well, and computing has already resolved a great number of problems in society using these concepts. And let's just put ourselves in the middle of it all, right? And that establishes ourselves in the middle of the existing computing place and allows us to expand into everything else that Theo just showed us.
I was wondering if there's any questions from anyone else about what they've just seen.
Indeed.
So I kind of have a dumb drummer question. So where are the private keys when this is all happening? Like, how does grandma deal with her private keys?
Not a
It's
dumb
kinda like
question, by the way.
It will be kind of like installing a wallet on your desktop. Kind of, you know that it's safe on your PC, right? And you might also want to link it to your wallet on your phone. That might also be an option. But it's not like we don't have to manage security in the browser. It's even way difficult to manage safely. That's why we have extensions like MetaMask to deal with it.
Yeah, so the question that you're asking, Daryl, if I understand it correctly, is how do I make sure that I can use my Visa card?
Yeah, in a sense.
It's the same question. It's the same question, right? So there are solutions to this problem, and as Greg has pointed out time and again, saying yes, I approve this, yes, I approve this, yes, I approve this, yes, I approve this is painful, right? And so that's where wallet integration comes into this. So, how does Amazon allow me to, order something without putting in my Visa card again and again and again, right? And so that's the direction, I think. But like Greg says, all dApps are going to have to deal with the fact that there needs to be approval for every single click. And what you've seen here is the elimination of those clicks. As the software expands, it will include more clicks, like Greg says it must. And then after that, we eliminate the clicks again, right? And Greg, do I have that right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I understand the way you're expressing it, but yes. I mean, at a certain point, what we really want to the full demo, as I can conceptualize it, is that we want to kind of show the painful version of it, where at every time there's a data access or an on-chain access, it's in your face, pay up or approve this or all of that. And so then people will get what we're saying. Right now we're just saying it and it's like blah blah blah. It's like a Gary Larson cartoon where the cat is is hearing nothing from the owner except their name. Right. So it's a similar kind of thing. But when you show like, here's a data request, here's a data request, here's a data request, and every one of those turns into a challenge for a private key and a demand for token, then people go, oh, I see what you mean, right? And then you say, and here's the solution, right? And one solution is an ad banner. Another solution is a wallet integration with pre-approved limits. Another solution is subscription, right? So these are all sort of standard solutions, and we want to show the full range of them.
And every single one of those solutions will be included in RDrive.
Sweet, that's very good news. All right, thank you so much, Theo, and thanks to the RPC for putting that together. It's looking better and better every single time, and I think it gets across to people what RChain is about more than we've been able to get RChain across. I think when people see blockchain, they come with a whole bunch of preconceived notions. And so it's very difficult for them to hear the RChain message. But when we show them what RChain is actually about, then I think the light bulb starts to go off or go on, or however you want to say it. All right.
I realize that David Asamoah is not here on this call right now, but
okay.
Everyone should know the significance of his efforts over the last 2 weeks to produce the material necessary for the Paris presentation.
Yes, kudos to David and to the whole team. It's great, really good work. With that, I would like to turn it over to the community and to see if there are any other questions, comments, concerns. This is as much your time as it is the RChain staff's. So please, any thoughts, worries, concerns, questions?
I'm just wondering what your schedule is for tomorrow, April 14th at Paris Blockchain Week.
So I will be at the conference. I'm also meeting with several of our partners. So we'll be meeting with Visionary Access. We'll also be meeting with Dunhill Bismarck. And I think that's what I've got on my schedule. Steve, what about you?
What have I got on my schedule? Well, I have lost my wallet, Greg. So I'm going to spend the first few hours to go find my wallet.
Oh my God! All the ETH is gone.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in my 1 meter square studio in Paris. It's difficult to sit in 1 meter square. And thank God I went out for a decent lunch with Raphael, because at least I've had food. And I will somehow find my way to the conference, go look for some stuff. But I'm just going to be on that stand. And what I want to be able to do is I want to direct people to looking at rpub.com, because that was the secret weapon in the 10 minutes that I had rpub.com. I mean, it was also one of the weapons that was used at Ecole calendar. Because when people were clustering around both Greg and myself separately, the guys all around me, that I just got them all to log into rpub.com and said, well, that's what we're doing with RChain publishing, which shows off some of the capabilities of RChain itself. And from here, you could build these sorts of things. So I kind of want to continue to use that as an asset. And I'm going to be working with Sander next week specifically to make sure that we can track people coming to the website, because what we need to do is not lose that momentum. We need to go back to people. I've even got emails to do today that I've got to send out to about 6 people at Ecole calendar, because they gave me their addresses and I want to faithfully respond back to all of them. And then we'll see what else comes. I mean, I had several people that were, I mean, we talked about the inspirational thing there, and Greg was, does himself a disservice that, okay, his clock wasn't quite right for the 10 minutes, but he did a great job nevertheless. But actually, in the context of the conference, there were a few people that came up and said, well, what is it all about? And I explained in the same way that we did at Ecole calendar. And I had another 2-3 people say, wow, that's inspirational. I don't tend to get that very often. So it must be, as Nora says, it's the truth of the message. And as Greg says, it's the truth of the message. So I'm hoping to spread that message more. That's the job in hand.
Awesome. So on that note, I would like to thank everyone for their participation this week. Look forward to seeing you next week. And please stay safe, stay warm, and we will see you on the other side.